I remember. All by myself. Okay. Where do we start today?
Sharon said page 103 through 106, finishing John 12.
Yeah. So what did we read through?
I was driving.
I think we were starting at John 12:27.
Okay, thank you.
That's
I
what I
think
wrote
that's what I
last week.
wrote.
Yep.
Yeah,
27 to the end.
yeah. That's what
Okay,
I wrote too, Jane.
Let us just for the sake of context, start reading at verse 20. And then go through the end of 12.
Okay.
So who wants to give us a start?
Oh, I will. I
At
got to go.
12:20.
And I'm reading out of the student NIV. Now there were some Greeks among those who went up to worship at the feast. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, with a request. Sir, they said, we would like to see Jesus. Philip went to tell Andrew, and Andrew and Philip in turn told Jesus. Jesus replied, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. I tell you the truth. Unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. The man who loves his life will lose it, while the man who hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant also will be. My Father will honor me, the one who serves me. Now my heart is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, it was from this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it and will glorify it again. The crowd that was there and heard it said it thundered. Others said an angel had spoken to him. Okay, that's next 30. Who's going to go on?
I will. Jesus answered and said, the voice did not come because of me, but for your sake. Now is the judgment of the world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out. And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself. This he said, signifying but what death he would die. The people answered him, we have heard from the law that the Christ remains forever. How can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man? Then Jesus said to them, a little while longer the light is with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he is going. While you have the light, believe in the light, that you may become sons of light. These things Jesus spoke and departed and was hidden from them. Somebody else want to go on? But although he had done so many signs before them, they did not believe in him, that the word of Isaiah the prophet might be fulfilled, which he spoke. Lord, who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Therefore they could not believe, because Isaiah said again, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, lest they should see with their eyes, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. These things Isaiah said when he saw his glory and spoke of him. Nevertheless, even among the rulers, many believed in him, but because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue, for they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God.
John editing.
Then
So,
Jesus
keep going, unless somebody else wants to read.
Jesus cried out and said, he who believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. and he who sees me sees him who sent me. I have come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness. And if anyone hears my words and does not believe, I do not judge him, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. He who rejects me and does not receive my words has that which judges him. The word that I have spoken will judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his command is everlasting life. Therefore, whatever I speak, just as the Father has told me, so I speak.
Okay. Okay, so much stuff.
Thank you for listening.
Mhm.
Thank you for reading.
So
That's
Yvonne, go ahead.
With what we just read and what we have in what she wrote is not at all related.
Oh,
So-
yeah.
Maybe on the page, she's talking about, I guess she's going back down, we're going back to page 102 a bit. One thing I do have written in when we did John before, Kathy, is John was doing some editing here. I've got on verse 37. This was to fill the word of Isaiah that John was kind of editing as he wrote along. That they had heard that the law was Christ, would remain forever. And that I've got your notes here that there was confusion about the Messiah's role in the minds of the people, that they were confused. They thought, of course, it was going to be a great military person.
Yeah.
I thought it's interesting, the connection that we read last week, before we start 20, so it's 12:19, where the Pharisees then said to one another, you see, you can do nothing. Look, the world has gone after him. And then in the very next part, it talks about the Greeks coming, wanting to see Jesus. And now there's this sort of, these are filters now to get through to Jesus. It's not like he's real accessible almost.
Well,
So-
I would think about that maybe in the opposite direction. And that's why I wanted us to reread 20. That this is including now. I mean, when you read 19,
Mhm.
look, the world has gone after him.
Yeah.
And now there's some Greeks there. And so I think what John is signifying here is that this story, this Jesus, who is the story, is now attracting the world, people outside of the family, people
Right.
outside of the synagogue, people outside,
Right.
and that
And-
that could be worrisome too.
Yeah. But it's like Jesus sees that as,
Yeah.
okay, my time is close.
Yeah. No, I think you're accurate there.
This commentary says these Greeks probably were converts to the Jewish faith.
Yeah.
They may have gone to Philip because though he was a Jew, he had a Greek name.
Yeah, I mean, the Greeks would always be converts, of course. That's
And he seems
definite by definition.
seems to be related to the Greek world, which is, showing
Well,
us.
he's only related to the Greek world in that they want to see Jesus.
That's right.
And so the word Jesus, that sort of whole reputation now has gone beyond.
Yeah.
We might have called the safety of the little world in which Jesus and the followers lived. So that's what brings on the sort of the rest of it. That's what brings on the attention of those who are in power. I mean, continues to bring on the attention of those who are in power. And then verse 27, we need to note, now my soul is troubled, and what should I say? Father, save me from this hour. No, it is for this reason that I've come to this hour. And our author talks about that. It points out that that's different than the synoptics. In the synoptics, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it sounds almost as if Jesus is, what's the word? Bereft. Where are you, God? Why have you forsaken me? And that's not really what's happening here. And additionally, Jesus hears this voice, and that really sort of solidifies his him. But he says, this is for your sake, not my sake. So, you know, I find that really fascinating. Jesus is pretty clear about this and what's going to happen here in his role in it. Do you think so or not?
Yes. I'm just finishing here. Yeah, because on 103, she says, and I'm in the middle paragraph about the 5th line, Jesus shows no uncertainty about his task, only commitment.
Mm-hmm.
The authors have taken great pains to portray Jesus as obedient to the Father and in control of his faith. And then the Johannine climax, that his resolve and commitment to God.
Yeah.
Contrast with the other Gospels, portray him as distressed and fearful. John is purposely responding, saying no, he embraced it.
Yeah.
So you're right, that it's a different.
Right. And she makes a comment then about high Christology and low Christology. Do you understand that, what those terms are and why she's using them there? Any questions about that?
Explain.
Well, so she does a pretty good job saying high Christology, a Jesus who looks more divine than human, and the low Christology is emphasizing Jesus's humanity. So we in the church have that conversation all the time, right? Is Jesus divine, or is Jesus human? Can we err on one side or the other? How do we find a place where we can embrace both Jesus's divinity and Jesus's humanity? How are we both high and low at the same time? Is that even a possibility? Can we do that? Go ahead, Jane Korsberg.
So is that thinking reflected in the note that some hear thunder and some hear the voice of an angel was speaking to him?
No, I don't think so. I think, no, I just think that written into John shows us that Jesus is divine. Jesus hears and sort of almost, I don't have a good word, but almost commands the heavens. And that's a really high Christology.
The rocks will cry out.
Yeah. And we don't have to, I think this is the thing. We don't have to say Jesus is divine. We don't have to go on one side or the other. We can live in both of these things. And as Episcopalians, we and I think most mainline denominations, we live pretty comfortably I think. I could be wrong. I live pretty comfortably in the midst of that.
At both, yeah.
Well,
Again,
It's-
it's the mystery.
I mean, and the Council of Nicaea really kind of put it in the creed,
Mhm.
you know, we believe in one Lord, Jesus Christ, the only Son of God, eternally begotten of the Father, God from God, light from light, how Johannine,
Mhm.
true God from true God, begotten, not made, of one being with the Father. Through him all things were made.
Mhm.
High Christology.
Yeah.
For us and for our salvation, he came down from heaven. By the power of the Holy Spirit, he became incarnate from the Virgin Mary
So,
and was made man.
no Christology.
And
There.
that's low Christology?
That's a really
Well,
good
his
Maybe a different-
humanness.
Maybe a
Yeah,
different.
and
kind of
and
low.
that's what the council at Nicaea struggled so to do, was to come to terms with human and divine.
As we all do. I mean, we continue to do
We
that.
continue
Mhm.
to do that. And I mean, we call it mystery because we don't, we don't know the answer. But
But we
But I
believe anyway.
well,
Right.
and we embrace that as a reality, in all of its messiness, right?
That's,
And that's where we take the great leap of faith.
There you go.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, the great
And
leap.
that's the hard part for a lot of people.
The leap?
Yeah, to take the leap
Just
of faith.
leap. I always look at okay, I go to Indiana Jones, on in the first movie where he has to go through the trials in order, that's right? Yeah, in order to get to the Grail. And there's the one that's the leap of faith. No, none of you look like
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
cross that bridge.
that. He has to what looks like a chasm. And I think those are all from Isaiah, right? Those quotes that each
Mhm.
one of those obstacles that he has to overcome all come from Isaiah. But he has to take
Hi,
the
Mike.
leap of faith. And it turns out that it's actually a bridge, but he can't see it because it's exactly the same as the chasm that he has to cross. So once he puts his foot out there, not knowing that, he's caught by the bridge. For me, that's an image about what does it mean to take a leap of faith and trust that you'll get caught somehow.
I like that concept of caught, almost the net, the safety net.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it hurts. The falling hurts.
Yes, it does.
For Indiana Jones, it worked fine. That one did anyway. Okay, so I just find so much of what she's written, our author has written in here, so fascinating.
Oh, the salvation as exorcism. That was
Salvation.
quite a
Yeah. I think
salvation.
that's really something that John's on page 104. John's plot line doesn't focus on Jesus bringing the kingdom. Instead, it emphasizes that the Son has come to reveal the Father and give life to the world. This is what love looks like. And that goes completely and absolutely with, and it's because I mostly live in a low Christology, I guess. you know, this is what it looks like to God, for God to stoop, for God to come into the world, for God to kneel in the mud with you and raise you up. This is what that looks like. But I have never read anything about how she writes about banishing the ruler of this world, and that's what she calls exorcism. That in John's gospel, Jesus doesn't do all of the exorcisms that he does in the other gospels. But this is what that looks like. So banishing the ruler of the world, known in
What page
John,
are you?
known,
Page?
104 still, just
Thank
the
you.
same paragraph. Known in John as Satan or the devil. John uses exorcism language here to demonstrate that although Jesus isn't walking around banishing demons left and right, he will take care of the ultimate evil. How does that work? And then she says, let's check back again. So on he goes. It sounds like the snake on the pole analogy again, but it's acquired even more layers of meaning. By saying he will be lifted up, Jesus is indicating that he will, quite literally, be raised up on the cross and then ascend from earth and into the heavens. And like the snake on the pole, people will be drawn to him where they will gaze on their salvation. Jesus's self-giving act of love on the cross is banishing Satan, banishing evil, banishing. She is showing us an image of what it looks like when we say victory on the cross.
But we always think of victory over death.
Mm-hmm. We do, but we know we still die. So, I mean, that's always rather confusing, isn't it?
Very.
Well, in that death isn't the end.
Right. And why isn't death? I mean, I think that's what she's going for, is why isn't death the end? Because Jesus has banished Satan.
I was just thinking as you were talking about the on the cross, raising up, the ascension, how we've talked that for John, the ascension is the most important part
Mm-hmm.
of the rising up, of going up, of returning.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
say that death is not the end. What about people who commit suicide? They've got an idea that that's the end. They must have. Otherwise, it stops their pain, period. That's why they do it.
Yeah, not necessarily, Jane. I think, not like I, have interviewed people before they kill themselves, but I think there must be some who see it as an escape from this world and hoping. I think some of them may hope they're going to a better place and get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of here. Huh?
I agree with that.
But we
Well,
don't
I would
know.
hope
We
you're
don't
right,
get
Mike.
that. Yeah, well, we don't know, but it's obviously an act of desperation and hopelessness about this world.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And
Anyway, that's. I also want to say that this sounds to me like that great leap of faith happens with. I forget what Sharon just said about victory over death, but also abolishing, exercising the rule of this world, ruler, because I don't see that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we have, in order to hear that as followers, I think it takes a huge leap of faith to say either it happened or it's going to.
Or it is.
But see, that's my point, is I don't think it is. Those evil rulers of the world are all over the place and having fun.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They seem to be in charge in so many ways. And people are suffering still, dying over that. So in order to still have a hopeful life in this world, I think we still need that. Here's what I'm saying. That leap of faith is it's not confined to Jesus as God and man. It's confined to the whole salvation story.
You are right there. Yeah. Yeah, because it's the right? Jesus exercises Satan, and she calls it a divine hug and a giant exorcism all rolled into one. And then she goes on to say, Jesus's death on the cross draws people to him because it is an act of utter self-giving love. And then she says, how Jesus's death casts evil out of the world is not so clear. I mean, that's
That is not something our little minds.
it's not. So, and then she goes on that that would mean that the means of Jesus's death and execution by political and religious powers is related to the destruction from which we are saved, namely our human enslavement to oppressive powers. In that case, Jesus's death casts out evil by revealing its presence among us and showing us how vulnerable we are to its power. We are saved then by that revelation, along with the expression of God's love through Jesus's life, death, and resurrection, which will draw us to God. All of that, that's a big old mouthful of stuff, but what I have been saying is that what John, this love that Jesus brings to humanity from God equals a relationship, and it equals salvation, and it equals all of eternal life. All of that is all of a piece, all rolled up into one thing. And so if we are saved then by that revelation, what that shows us, so showing us how vulnerable we are to its power, I think. So this is, I think, what is so related to Revelation, in that what we're being shown here is resistance. It's not an answer to why is evil still in the world? Why is evil still here if it says that Jesus cast it out? The answer is that you people are capable of so much love and resistance to those evil powers, even if it brings you to death. Because death is going to happen.
That's not very comforting.
It isn't very well. It's not comforting if
no, but he isn't a big key. A big key here is laying down his own life and trying to show that that's the path to, even if we don't see it, that's the path to overcoming evil. Is I'll love until they,
through them killing
take me away.
Yeah.
I'm reading in Mark.
That's scary.
It's very scary. Are we capable of that?
Oh.
I'm reading
always.
in Mark 10, where he says 9:10, relating exactly this, when he says, if you love your life, you lose it. If you lose your life for my sake and for the gospel, you will have it forever. And I think that kind of ties into what she's saying and what John is saying here. But yeah, the resistance. And I also was thinking that it has to be and I don't mean this in the sense of ditching community. I don't mean just the Jesus and me kind of thing, but each of us has to make that decision ourselves for ourselves. And then we relate and we relate to the whole community
Yeah.
as we make the decision.
And it's all part of the same piece.
It's all part of the, yeah.
And then I think what she says next is brilliant. Now, you can take issue with me, but I think this is brilliant. So the very end of that paragraph on page 105. Such an explanation does not fit well with the prevailing explanations of salvation in contemporary Christianity, but it does express the message that John's authors seem to be communicating. And then she puts in this footnote.
No,
For those of you who are into atonement theories, and you need to read David Loesch's book, he lays these 4 atonement theories out very clearly. John's description of salvation shows us pieces of the Christus Victor, moral exemplar, and scapegoat theories, but there's no penal substitutionary atonement to be found. So there's no Jesus is being substituted for all of us.
which is
So-
also scary.
but I think what the brilliance here is that and it is in David Loesch's book too. The brilliance lies in the reality that you know this whole thing is not about a high Christology, a victorious Christology. It's not about just a moral exemplar. Jesus was perfect, or Jesus was of no sin, that sort of thing. And the scapegoat, they had to have somebody to put to death, or the substitutionary, Jesus went to the cross in place of all of us, which has some allure for me, actually. That we find this hard to wrap our minds around, and it is legitimately so hard to wrap our minds around it. So where does faith come into that? I mean, you guys are so willing to robustly question all of this, and to really engage in what it might be about. And I think that's exactly where Jesus lives. In the midst of this engagement, in the midst of not just trying to figure it out here, but what's in our hearts, what's in our minds, what's in our souls, and how are we
Can we forgive other people?
moving into this world? Well, yeah,
This
And
is
if we
why,
move along to 44,
yeah,
we don't judge other people.
yes, we don't.
Yeah.
That's not our job.
It is not, right?
But everybody seems to do it.
Yeah, well, and I mean it.
Yeah.
I was talking to Pat, and I don't know Pat's last name. Paula's friend, Pat.
Pat Libertor.
Oh, okay. And somehow or other we got to talking about where she had gone to church previously, and she said she grew up Roman Catholic, and that she went to Catholic school and loved the nuns and loved what she was taught, and felt that she was brought up in the Catholic faith to believe in love, that you really need, that our jobs are to love one another. That's our whole job.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking to one of the new priests in Janesville, and she was talking about everybody's penchant to judge one another. And he said, oh, well, you can judge people. We're allowed to judge people. We have to love them, but we can certainly judge them. And she said she walked out, and that was the last time she ever went to that church.
Hmm.
And that's part of why she came to us because Paula at Trinity, because Paula convinced her that we didn't feel like judging was our job, although we act that way sometimes.
We
But
do, and
Oh,
that's
yes.
where forgiveness comes in, right? But
Right.
but I do think we are very clear that judging is God's job, not our job. And that it's not judging about whether or not you're good enough, right? Because the creation says you are good. We are all good. That makes us
What about
good
judging
enough.
whether we should associate with somebody?
So I don't think
Activity
okay,
is,
can I finish this thought quick, Jane?
oh, sorry.
So that judgment, God's judgment, is based on the sort of I mean, for me that's it's kind of a parental sort of thing of you can do better, you know, keep loving that person, keep at it, don't let down, keep using your voice, and all of the resistance sorts of things that we are called to do, to resist the evil one. I think that's what that's all about, is that continuing. And yeah, and that judgment doesn't have anything to do with us. Okay, Jane.
You went down the path that I was going to follow.
Okay.
it's interesting to me, because one hears a lot of love the sinner, hate the sin,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which, if you'll pardon my French, I think is complete and utter bullshit.
Yeah.
And your only job is to love the sinner,
Mm-hmm.
love everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
have no business judging whether or not, I mean, unless you're on a jury.
which is a whole different kind of system.
Exactly.
We
And
make a mistake when we think God is in that system.
yeah. My daughter and I had some joint friends / family on Facebook who are, for want of a better term, very mega evangelical and enormously judgmental of others, to the point where sometimes I can barely read what they post
No.
because it's so unloving from people who claim to be good Christians.
Yeah.
And so Annie, my daughter, said she couldn't take it anymore and she just unfriended them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it because it was just so ugly, some of the stuff that was getting posted. And then I thought, well, and what you just said, Kathy, how can I continue to show love if I'm not there?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
And that's so that, I mean, I think that's the absolute, well, one of the really hardest things
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
we're called to do is to stay in when,
And choose the opposite way. Is that
well,
what you mean?
and keep choosing love, because it does hurt so much.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a
I
good
don't know
question.
if hurt's the right word, but it's hard. It's hard to resist.
But what would that look like for the situation that Sharon just talked about?
I just scroll on, actually. I have a situation the opposite direction. And I love them dearly, and it's Bruce's family, a family member, Bruce's family. And I love them, and I don't respond to things that I just don't respond, except to, you know, say I'm thinking of you, to the point where I'm about to say, you know, you'd make a really good Episcopalian. Have you thought about the ELCA? Because they were raised Missouri Synod Lutheran, baptized, and consider themselves Lutheran. And I'm thinking, you know, you'd be really good with us, because everything you say is pretty much what we believe. But I had another question that may be silly and it may be trite, but a lot of our life is lived in that area.
Mhm.
When it comes to the judgment, I think
Ann, could you
we not to
please
judge the people, but for instance, if-
repeat what you said, because I got an incoming call that blocked you out. Would you please
Wow.
repeat what you said?
Well, just,
I said
just
that
summarize.
I often with this, I have it the opposite direction, but I just go ahead with loving them and agree where I can. I don't get into discussions and with them. What I had was something kind of trite. We talk about not judging, and I think for me there has to be a line between not judging the person,
Mhm.
but, and I'm going straight musical, to saying, well, I think this isn't necessarily appropriate for a certain situation. Okay, I'll be very honest with it. Katie, our soloist, is going to sings once a month at Mount Zion with me. And she wants to do Bridge Over Troubled Waters next time. And I thought, I don't think that's really appropriate. Now, I'm not judging her. I'm thinking about who suggested it. She says, well, the worship leader or their whatever there said it was okay. And I thought, then I thought about it and I thought, yeah, it probably is okay. There's going to be quite a few members of the congregation who aren't thrilled to hear about Mother Mary. Maybe we should think about that. You know, it's though now that's a trite situation where I don't want to judge the person, but the decision. You know, where do we not ever say, I don't think that's appropriate, or this isn't,
That's not, I mean, I don't think that that's
that's not
not
judging.
part of it. No, I mean, having conversations is having conversations about stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, and talking about what your parameters are in choosing music is a really important conversation to have. And then you can go ahead and do what you said you were going to do. And disagreeing with people's decisions is perfectly fine as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
Just so long as you don't try and
that's the judgment.
assassinate their character.
Yeah, that's what I was at. Okay,
That's a whole different, I think that's a whole different thing.
thank you.
But how do you move? I mean, I think the bottom line question is how do we who love God and love Jesus and know that we are called to this ever embracing kind of love, how do we help move in situations toward love rather than toward brokenness and fractured relationships? And that I think it continues to be a really hard question. You know, I think part of it is asking questions is, you know, can you tell me more about that particular decision you've made or that place that you find yourself politically? Tell me about that and tell me, you know, you could be really brave and say something like, where do you see Jesus in that?
Mm-hmm.
What would that do?
I had a conversation with somebody about, well, the person remarked that I can't believe anybody is without food. There is no excuse for that when you can just go for a dollar and buy this particular item that the person said. And I said, wait a minute, first they pay their bills and make sure they got a roof over their head and other things that are necessary. And then they end up with no money for food. And this person couldn't accept that you never have enough money for food. How do I say to them, that's impossible? I guess I'd have to jump in and say, well, what would Jesus say about this?
Yeah, what does Jesus say about feeding people who are hungry?
Mm-hmm. I will tell you that there's so much going on down at Echo that they're continually short of paper bags, which tells me that they're feeding a lot more people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that they're, you know, they always say, oh, well, they don't need a cell phone. They're paying the cell phone bill and not the communication these days is kind of
The only way you can
put
do
it into a
That's the only way They have access to the things that all the rest of us have access to.
Exactly.
Rock County put out a survey, like a health checkup.
Right.
Did you look at that survey, Ann?
I looked at part of it. Yes, I was shocked.
Well, as a
I shouldn't have.
board member of Nutrition and Health Associates, we were asked to fill it out. And all I could think of was how very privileged I am.
I know I've been guilty about that myself, that I could,
You don't have
I
to
mean-
feel guilty about it. You just have to acknowledge the reality of it.
Yes.
And then ask yourself
and-
the question, what does Jesus call me to do in the midst
Exactly.
of it?
Yeah.
I will tell you
But,
that,
I mean, I think that's part of why what people do is they, blame and guilt and, it's not about place and blame. And Jane, I don't know if that's the answer to the question about why people, can't accept that people don't have money for food. I don't, because they want to blame those people for not doing what they do. I don't know. But the question is, what would Jesus do? What does Jesus call me to do?
feed the hungry.
With
This is
my
the-
privilege, with my abundance. Mike was going to say something quite some time ago, and we jumped all over that. Did you remember it?
It's this. I hope that I can live up to being non-judgmental and to loving those people that I don't agree with. But I don't think I'm called to convince them. And as you, how do I, or Jane, how do I tell somebody people really do have food? That I don't think I'm called to that, and I don't think it's possible. And I think it riles me up to a different sin, if you will, of pride. Who's to say that I'm really right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say that, and I might be wrong, but that doesn't negate loving and continuing to do what I think is right. But it doesn't mean that I have to tell everybody come along with me, because
Yeah, which is that's judgment, telling that I'm right, but then you have to come and be with me, and that is a reverse judgment that also goes on a lot.
and if I still want to convince them, then I'm still judging them.
Yeah.
I guess I get upset because I've been down that road more than once.
With
But then reach out your hand and help, but you're not going to convince anybody.
No.
That's part of our problem, is
Right.
this divide and yelling at each other. I'm right, you're not.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. We're not going to convince anyone. And John says
And
that.
shouldn't work
This
on that.
isn't about convincing. This is about a relationship. This is about, I mean, it's in her words too. That's what that's about. I would though say that inviting someone to come along your side when you are working at the food shelf
Mhm.
is
Yep.
is a good thing. It's a good invitation to make.
Mhm.
Not, you're not trying to convince them of one thing or another thing, but these people, the food shelf needs our help. I'm going to go do this. Why don't you come with me?
Sure, that's
And
that
they-
was- that's
gotta
the phrase.
Hmm.
Actions speak louder than words.
yes, that's
I
what,
can't argue it, but let's do it together.
yes, let's do it together. Yeah.
Yo, we gotta have a little prayer for those of us that are one way or another wanting to show our help to the needy. The crop walk is Sunday.
Mhm.
The weather report is god awful. Lord, I told you, dissipate the rain. It's supposed to be very heavy rain and hail.
I walked in the snow.
Yes, you did.
It's supposed to be thunderstorms though on
Yeah.
Sunday, so that's not a
Remember,
great
I
idea.
always remember, you know what? That money comes no matter what.
Exactly.
It does.
Whether or
does.
not people can walk, that money comes. And
Yep.
that walk is abundance upon abundance.
Mhm.
It's exactly what John's
And
got.
those of us that can't, I remember years ago, those of us that can't walk physically, they used to have the rocking chair thing.
Right. Yeah.
who's sitting rock. I hadn't
No,
heard,
that's-
but anyway.
Yeah. So you just
if-
tell people if the weather's bad, just give. It doesn't matter. Just give.
Absolutely. It's 9:56, people. What are we gonna finish?
Yeah, what are we doing next time? Let me find my piece
Oh,
of
I
paper
won't
to write
be
it
here.
down.
What is 56?
I
I
won't
thought
be
it
here
was
next
46.
Friday. I don't know. My daughter and I are going up. It's our our DAR state conference next weekend. But the big thing we're all supposed to do is to bring canned goods to help with one of the pantries in Green Lake or wherever, or no, we're giving canned goods and help for the VA hospital in Middleton. So we're doing our bit to share.
So we are leaping into the farewell discourse.
Yep.
So
Page is what?
that's 13. We have feet washing and betrayal and commandment, denial. Do you want to just read all of chapter 13?
It's pretty short.
Yeah, we can
And,
be.
I don't know how far she goes. Oh, she's got the farewell discourse Cliff's Notes version. Goes all the way into 17. So, I mean, we'll take a little bit of time to read our author's chapter 7, which is John 13 through 20, the final countdown. So let's just start with 13.
And what page is in the book?
I just chapter 7, just get started reading,
Okay.
because she doesn't really,
We should probably read at least to page 111.
yes, at least 111. And she does have at the bottom there, yeah, because scene 2 starts at the last, isn't that the last verse? Just about, yeah. So through
Okay.
111,
Thank-
Okay, good.
okay?
See you all. Well, I won't see you. It depends on what time we leave next Friday. I might be
What's
here.
next Friday? What's the date? May? No?
Third, I think.
Oh, man.
3.
Wow.
Great, yeah.
Let that
Yeah.
happen.
Right.
Okay.
Two.
Right.
Any,
Love everybody.
the Janesville people, if you're looking for something to do at 2 o'clock, I'm playing music along with Peter and Janet Irvin and a few other friends at the library, what we call our string band. Come in and stop in or walk through or whatever if you've got
What
Are
time?
you, are you gonna be in
2
that first
o'clock.
circle area?
2
Today-
o'clock at the library.
Okay, thanks for telling us.
I'll
I
think
thank
of
you
you
all.
while I'm
Thanks, everybody.
blowing my nose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All
We'll
right.
Have a
pray
good
for
week.
you also, Sharon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, everybody.